It all came down to this. Having endured riots, plagues, politics, and treachery, it all ended in this final moment as the Black Scale Consortium stood ready to dethrone the mad monarch who nearly plunged fair Corvosa into total ruin. Months ago, 4 very different people came together to try and save the city they were all fond of. Sir Valerian Arcona, a knight of a powerful but secretive noble family. Apollo Fish, guardsman by day but also dangerous vigilante, the Crimson Cloak. Dorian Deepcrows, independent information broker for the various guilds. And Dr. Vol, psychiatrist and necromancer. In order to save their city, or at least find a profitable place within it, the United Black Scale Consortium endured many hardships in their purpose. After the demise of the king, the treacherous queen took the throne and immediately the city was beset with rebellions and plague. Evading notice at the castle, the consortium fled Corvosa, made a temporary peace with the exiled Sheonti, and found the one fabled magic sword said to be the only tool that could be used against the cursed crown of fangs driving Queen Ilios's lust for power. The city was in flames upon their return, but the consortium fought their way into the castle and attempted an ambush of the queen. Yet she was ready, protected by her grey maidens and a hideous bloat mage advisor. The battle was furious as spell and steel shed blood upon the floor of the throne room, with no clear victor until the bloat mage blasted the group with a prismatic spray, killing Dr. Vol instantly. Next round, the same bloat mage conjured tentacles of blackest shadow to grapple the consortium, ensnaring Sir Valerian and the Crimson Cloak. Dorian Deepcrow strategized carefully what would be the best possible outcome. And then he turned invisible, cast an expeditious retreat upon himself, and fled to catch the soonest ship out of the doomed city. With allies ensnared, deceased, or absconded, Sir Arcona did the only thing that could make sense. He threw the bastard sword straight at the queen's crown. Natural 20. Check for confirmation? Also a natural 20. In that moment, the sword embedded itself in the head of the corrupt monarch, but also sundered the foul crown of fangs that sat atop it. The remaining bloat mage took the opportunity to teleport away from the scene. After taking a moment to reflect on their triumphs, Sir Valerian took the throne while the Crimson Cloak retired in obscurity to start a family. The city was saved, though it would never recover from those events. In fact, some said that the reign of Sir Valerian would prove to be even more dark and catastrophic than under the Queen. But that is another tale. So what really happened? This campaign had been running on fumes for a while. There was a friction in the group that only kept growing, and it was becoming clear that if the game ran for much further, it would become very much a player versus player situation. Dr. Vol was already conspiring with a local Rakshasa to undermine Valerian without the party's knowledge. Sir Valerian was preparing to claim the throne and then have his own group imprisoned. Deepcrows had already re-evaluated his attachment to the group in the city, and was clearly scraping the barrel for reasons to even stay involved. This needed to end, and soon, and as a DM, I didn't exactly know how. The module itself is probably one of the top that Paizo has published, however is not without its faults. One of the most glaring is how in the 6th book it's presented that after the PCs return to Corvosa, they rally support, check in on allies, siege the castle, and fight the queen in the throne room, only to find out then that the queen is a simulacrum and actually is in a swamp ruin outside of Corvosa working on the real ritual. That felt cheap and out of place. The book already had the PCs leave Corvosa for increasingly flimsier reasons, and now they're back on the cusp of victory, only to have that cinematic moment robbed for an arbitrary blue-balling. I was committed to have the final ritual happen in the throne room and the PCs would stop it. Regarding the players, we need to get into alignment. I've always tried to promote the idea that all alignments could theoretically work together if given the proper story hooks and the player buy-in. The one prerequisite I've asked of each player, and what would keep the players together, was that no matter what their alignment was, everyone needs to be unified by a fondness for the city, a civic duty to save it from anarchy. They may disagree on methods, but all can agree that their personal religious attitudes can be discussed another time, as everyone likes living in Corvosa and doesn't want to see it as a smoking pile of rubble. That didn't quite work in the long run. I don't know whether it's because I possessed at the time a very restrictive view of alignment, or I didn't question players more thoroughly about why they chose the alignment they did. However, we ended up with a party that had one neutral good, one lawful neutral, one neutral evil, and one true neutral. While this started off well, The stresses of the campaign wore at them, and some bad behavior started to creep in, possibly because of the alignment and how we viewed it at the time. And a little bit came in with the justification of, it's something my alignment would permit me to do. I consider myself incredibly fortunate that the combat played the way it did. High-level D&D combat can be especially vicious, with 3rd edition relying a lot on save versus fuck you effects just to instantly ruin someone's day. With Dr. Vol dead and Decros having fled, the likelihood of running any further sessions past that in order to resolve the player situation was pretty much nil. Even if I wanted to perform the Fate Queen scenario, the party was effectively broken. Sir Valerian's player rolling double natural 20s was the other confirmation that this needed to be the finale. At that point, no one could sit down due to the excitement. As much as we rely on rules as written, I don't give two craps about what the Queen's remaining hit points were, accurate rules of sundering, the logistics and penalties for throwing a bastard sword without relevant feats. The story must win over all of that. In their darkest moments, seconds before they perished and the city along with it, a 15-foot throw was made using a major artifact designed to destroy this specific crown, and a 1 in 400 roll was made. Fuck it, they can have this victory. It was also in this moment that I had no idea how campaigns were even supposed to end. I'd never seen it before. YouTube didn't have nearly the DM support now as it did in 2012. These days I have a much more clearer picture of how it's supposed to go. You generally inquire to the players for a montage of where they are 1 year from now or 10 years from now, let them narrate where things go. I went through a brief quick scene of Deep Crows arriving in another city, telling tall tales of the things he's seen and people assuming that he's mad. Sir Valerian sitting atop of the throne but noticing his health is beginning to fail as he was poisoned by another of the party. Crimson Cloak semi-retiring to start a family with the local chief of the guards, and the raising of Dr. Vol by the Church of Asmodeus in exchange for certain treacherous favors to be performed, also kind of working as a stinger for another campaign to come. Overall, an incredibly memorable scene seared into the minds of all of those who were there, and lots of lessons were learned about disregarding rules in favor of cinematic moments, about addressing party and player conflicts early to avoid polluting the fun of the group, and about the core of the hobby, which is just making shit up as you go and hoping it all works out, because there really is no script.